Hi guys, good morning and welcome to Primus Learning. My name is Primus Veku, and this is yet another session here with me at Primus Learning. And today, guys, let me make sure my screen is looking good and you can see me completely. So today we'll be talking about the career path that I can take, that somebody can take. What career path do I take? So I get a lot of questions from people who are looking to start a career in IT, and they are really confused on what to get started with, right? They've heard a lot about AWS, about Azure, about, solutions architecting, about DevOps, about database administrators, but they do not understand what these mean. They kind of are confused where to begin. Some people will just come on and they're like, oh, I've heard about AWS. I just want to do AWS. I want to do just cloud computing. I've heard that it pays very well. I want to do just cloud. It pays so well. Yes, it does. But there are a lot of things to consider, right? So let's dive right in to look at what career path you can choose depending on where you are at the moment, right? This all depends on where you are currently. So we'll look at it in different, levels, right? So the first thing is we'll look at the AWS Solutions Architect and see who can do the AWS Solutions Architect and become good, who can do the DevOps engineer or take the DevOps engineer path and become good, and so on and so forth. And we'll consider your level, right? So let's start first with the AWS Solutions Architect, and we are looking at somebody who is coming in fresh, zero IT experience, zero IT knowledge. Maybe you are a historian, maybe you are an economist, maybe you are an accountant, maybe you are a literary person, you did literature, or you did law, or maybe you're coming from a totally philosophical background or something completely different from IT. Let us figure out which path is best for you right now. So the AWS Solutions Architect role is a role that is cumbersome. Let me start there. It is a role that is cumbersome, and the experience that they are expecting from you is really huge, right? So what is the role of an AWS Solutions Architect? The role of an AWS Solutions Architect is somebody who can go into an organization that is implementing or adopting cloud computing, or that is using AWS as as its main infrastructure, right? Infrastructure provider. So you could put this side by side with the Azure Solutions Architect or the Google Solutions Architect and so on. Those are similar, right? So when I'll be talking about the AWS Solutions Architect, you can translate that to the Google engineer or to the Azure Solutions Architect, depending on what you want to focus on. So the AWS Solutions Architect is somebody who has broad knowledge and understanding of a complete IT system. So the whole life cycle of a system, right, of an IT system. So the AWS Solutions Architect is supposed to be somebody who can go into an organization and see what the organization wants to do and propose a solution. So you go in, analyze whatever the client wants to do and propose a solution. And the solution you are proposing would help this organization to build its infrastructure, to build its systems on top of it. So take, for instance, you go into an organization, they want to build a microservice application. They have a design to build a microservice application or microservices application. And you, as the solutions architect, you're supposed to design an architecture that would host that application. And so what do? First of all, you need to understand what that architecture is even all about. You need to understand how to put an architecture together. You need to understand the various components of a microservices application. You understand that there's a database component. And so you need to be very good with databases in AWS. So you need to understand the RDS service in AWS. So what is the RDS service in AWS? It is the service that helps organizations to be able to host their databases, relational databases. In this case, we're talking about the relational database service in AWS. And so you have different engines, right? Different database engines like PostgreSQL, MariaDB, MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, and so on and so forth. Those are database engines. And you need to understand how to create them, how to help the organization create these databases, how they function, how scalability work if their data increases, how this application will be able to scale. You need to understand the security part of it, how security will be maintained for this architecture that you're helping the organization build. So the first thing is you have to understand the database component, understand how data will go into that database, how it will go out, how it affects the application itself, and all of those nitty-gritties about the database part. That's just one component that a solutions architect is supposed to understand and know very well, and be able to design an architecture diagram and represent it, represent a rational thing physically so that people can see and kind of visualize the solution that you're building. And so you have to understand that database component. You have to understand the networking component. So all of the data will be moving through a network. So you have to design a network for the organization, right, in AWS. And so you have to understand how a virtual private cloud is created, how an application will run inside that virtual private cloud. It's a space you want to carve out for the organization that will host its microservices. And so you need to know how to design a VPC, design subnets, and of course, you remember we're talking about the database solution, right? That database has to be hosted in a private subnet, else everybody in the internet will just have access to your database, right? And that is never that is not what you want to do, right, as a solutions architect. And so you have to take care of the networking component, build the VPCs, build the security groups, build the subnets, build the route tables, and all of that. Understand how traffic works, the protocols, the 7 network protocols. You have to understand those, because there are things that move at data level, there are things that move at network level, and all of that. You have to really, really understand them to be able to help an organization design that type of solution. And so if you're thinking to become an AWS solutions architect, you have to be that person with already that kind of broad understanding of systems, right? And so also you have to understand the web tier of that application. Where would that application actually run? What's the server that's hosting it? If it's a microservices application, maybe you want to containerize it and put it, build an image of that application. So you have to understand, hey, how would the containerization part come in? Is it something that you would use Docker to build it? And where would you have that infrastructure to use Docker? Would you be using ECS in AWS, which is the Elastic Container Service? Would they be hosted in containers? Are they images that are already existing somewhere that the organization just wants to plug in? Or you would build the images and all that, right? So you need to understand the server part of it. Where would this application be hosted? Will it be in a Kubernetes service, right? EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, which is the Kubernetes service engine of AWS, right? If it is in Google, it will be the GKE, which is the Google Kubernetes engine, and so on and so forth. So you want to understand that kind of service, that kind of architecture, and see how a cluster can be built, where that cluster can be built, the number of nodes that cluster needs to have to resist the application. You have to understand all of those things and see, hey, what kind of architecture can I put together? Where would this solution be? And the scalability part of it, and how would the application be exposed, right? All those details you need to understand. And then so after you've had the network component, the database component, and the server component and all that, you also need to understand, of course, how traffic would work, right, with the application. How secure is that architecture that you're building? And all of those things, those nitty-gritties, you need to absolutely be able to do. And as a solutions architect, it takes a lot of training. So it takes a whole lot of training. Some people just come in, I want to be a solutions architect. It takes a whole lot of work. And so if you want to follow this path, you know that you will take time. You will learn the AWS solutions architecting tools. AWS has tons and tons of tools, and then learn how to connect them together, how to build a system that is connected. And organizations now don't want to go into the console, to the AWS console like this one that you see right here. Where is my console? And just go clicking things and creating stuff. No, that's not how it works anymore. Most organizations will not want you to go, hey, okay, I want EKS, and you just go to EKS and create an EKS service like this one, right? You just manually add things here like that. No, organizations do not want that anymore. They have moved past that level. Now organizations want you to do what? To create infrastructure as code. So you should be able, as a solutions architect, an AWS solutions architect, to use Terraform, for instance, to create the infrastructure for an organization. So if they want to host those microservices, you should be able to create Terraform and modules that are reusable, that the organization can use to bring up a system in 1 hour. So for instance, if something happens and this one fails, the first one that you build, you should be able to stand up another one in 1 hour. And you can't do that if you're manually coming in here and creating stuff. So as a solutions architect, you need to understand a lot of things. First of all, you need to understand that infrastructure as code, Terraform or CloudFormation, and so many other tools that are out there, right? And be able to understand how all of the services would work together. So the VPC will not just be created like that. It will be created, taking into consideration what will run into in that VPC. The subnet created, taking into consideration the various components of the application that we are just mentioning. You have to take care of that, put them in modules. Maybe you have the VPC module, you have the IAM module for permissions. So you have to take care of permissions. That's another component, right? You give permissions to the users and whoever accesses that application. So you take care of the IAM, security groups, the storage part. Maybe data will be stored in S3. So you see another component that you need to understand: storage, how the data that the organization will be hosting will be stored, right? Maybe you will store it in a database, of course, or you need the different type of storage, object storage like S3. And so you learn how to design those and how it will work together. And so in creating your Terraform environment, you want it to be structured that way. You have a module with every service defined as a folder inside that module. Then you define the resources such that you can be calling the resources maybe from a main file when you want to create your infrastructure, and as such, reusing the code that you've built. And that way, you make a functioning environment such that the organization that is hiring you is able to see that we have somebody who can build a solution, present it to the team, and you should be able to talk it out. You should be able to discuss it with your client. You want to be somebody who understands the architecture and can discuss it, present it in a way that is visualized, or that can be visualized, and be able to discuss it with your organization, with your leadership, with your team, right? So that's the path for the solutions architect. So if you're somebody who is critical enough and who thinks that he is capable of getting a global understanding of things and how these work, then you can go for this AWS solutions architect. But this is not a path that I would recommend for somebody who is just starting off, who is just zero and wanting to fall directly to the AWS solutions architect. Now, that's the AWS solutions architect part, guys. The second one that we see here is the DevOps engineer. So AWS solutions architecting and DevOps are beginning to intermingle. They are beginning to marry each other. Why am I saying so? Most solutions architects now are expected to do what DevOps engineers do. And most DevOps engineers are beginning to be expected to do what AWS solutions architects do. That's why I'm saying these roles are beginning to interchange. There is another role that is called the AWS Cloud Engineer, which is close to the AWS Solutions Architect, but it's more about the implementation. Typical AWS architect, solutions architects are just people who design the systems, and then AWS cloud engineers are people who implement the solutions that have been built by solutions architect. So you'll be somebody who will be building those pipelines, who will be building the CloudFormation templates, who will be building the Python scripts, who will be building the Lambda functions. And so if you want to be a cloud engineer, you need to understand Python. You need to be able to write good Python. You need to be able to write Lambda functions that will connect things in AWS, that will connect data, that will move data from place to place, that will tag resources, that will help the organization figure out what's happening in their AWS account, right? So you see another role that is in the middle between DevOps, engineer, solutions architect, that just falls right in. And to do that one, you need to understand the solutions architect things very well, and then be able to apply them. Then you can call yourself a cloud engineer. And there are roles out there for cloud engineers, a lot of them. All right, the DevOps engineer part. This is a part that I like to talk about very well, right? Because we offer at Primus Learning, we offer solutions architecting, we offer DevOps engineering roles, and there are some that are coming up. And our training is you know, the way I recommend people to do this path is, for instance, if you're a starter and you want to do something in the cloud, I would recommend you do the DevOps engineering path, because or that you take the DevOps engineering path, because it's a lot focused, right? Now, the solutions architect will build the infrastructure that you need to deploy applications in. And you as a DevOps engineer, you need to be able to understand tools that will help you put CI/CD pipelines in place, right? And those tools that are running in AWS, for instance. For instance, if you have a cluster, an EKS cluster that is running, and an organization has microservices to deploy in that cluster, you as a DevOps engineer, your work is to get the code from wherever the developers have put it, probably in a GitHub repository, a Bitbucket repository, GitLab repository, or whatever, right? Wherever it's stored. You want to be able to move that code from there, deploy it in that EKS cluster, in that EC2 instance, in that ECS cluster, and make it available to users, right? So you see where the DevOps engineer role comes in. So when the solutions architect is done with this part of the work, the DevOps engineer comes in to deploy the application. So to deploy the application, you need to build like a pipeline, what is called a continuous integration pipeline and a continuous deployment pipeline. A continuous integration pipeline is that process where once developers push their code out there, you know, it's able to be version controlled. You have a strategy that, you know, developers would use such that developer A can work on the same environment as developer B. They are developing the same thing, but they should be able to merge it to one repository and pull it back from that repository and work together and share whatever they are doing, right? So that there are no conflicts, so that when you merge your code, there are no conflicts, so that once everybody in the organization can see what you're working on, can be able to pull it down and of course deploy it or push it back up to that repository whenever you want. And versions of that application can be maintained, so that, for instance, when you deploy an application and there is a problem, you can version it back. You can revert back to a previous version of that application. So you need to be able to do to put in a strategy for that, right? And that is exactly what the DevOps engineering path would do, right? It will help you be able to understand what that strategy looks like, understand how you can build a GitHub strategy, a GitLab strategy, a Bitbucket strategy, understand how you can build a CI/CD pipeline, a continuous deployment and continuous integration, such that when the developer hits commit on his thing and pushes it out, automatically it runs and checks whether there are security vulnerabilities and checks whether there are things that you need to do. Once it has passed all the checks, then it has to deploy maybe in your development environment, right? You want to have a development environment where things are deployed, right? Where things are kept. And so, guys, as the DevOps engineer, you want to be able to be that person who would do that. And there are a lot of tools that will help you do that, right? There's GitHub Actions. You learn how GitHub Actions work, how you use it to automatically deploy something that is released to a repository. You learn how Jenkins work, how to use Jenkins to deploy those things. You learn how Kubernetes works and all other things. Yeah, so guys, as a DevOps engineer, that's where you want to be, right? You want to be at that position where you're able to deploy stuff. Sorry, my son is making noises in the background. Hope you are not listening to it. Anyway, yeah, I'll be talking from time to time. I'll pause and just take care of him before we continue. All right, so guys, that's the DevOps engineer path. So you want to be that person who learns that process, and this one is simpler than this process. This process here is a lot more focused because it's focused on those tools. Once you have understood the tools that you're using, Jenkins, Kubernetes, GitHub Actions, the pipelines, and you understand basics in Python programming, you understand scripting and maybe Terraform, and you understand how to put those things together, how to put pipelines together, how packaging works, how to package an application, maybe a Java application, maybe a Python application, and make it deploy in an environment, you are good. So this one is a lot more focused than this one. The AWS Solutions Architect is broader than the DevOps engineer role. So the DevOps engineer role is a lot more focused on those tools and those strategies. And once you're able to understand the strategies, once you've grasped the strategies, you're good to go and you can begin growing up in your career. Start as a junior DevOps engineer, you can become a DevOps engineer, you can really grow into it. And this doesn't stop there. It means that you can seriously learn for 6 months, for 1 year, and become a really good DevOps engineer. How do you do that? By studying, guys. There's a process in place. You need to take real hands-on practical training. This is hands-on stuff. It's not theory. There's no theory here. It's no theory. If you want to do it theoretical, you just do it to write certifications. When you're done, you're done. You don't know anything. So guys, this is about practical training. We are talking about practical training and not the thing you study and go and write certifications. No, there's a complete difference between those two. You can study the theories and know them in your head, but you don't practically know how to do it. We have so many people who are certified, but who know nothing about implementation, who know nothing about design, who know nothing about practically bringing solutions to life, who cannot even deploy something, who do not understand strategies, how these things connect together. And so guys, it is not about having a certification. It is about the strategies that you put in place and study and become good and practical, the practical part of it. And that's exactly where we come in as Primus Learning, right? All right. So there are others who are asking, hey, I want to become a database administrator. This is another path where you can really thrive, right? As somebody who is just starting off, as a beginner. So beginners in database administration, you learn a particular database type. For instance, you're taking SQL Server. You can learn the SQL Server database and become a big boy in SQL Server, which means you can learn how to create a SQL Server environment, maybe on-premise. So most people that I've seen are creating SQL Server databases on-premise. You learn how the security part of it works. You learn how to scale it. You learn how to create users, to grant users access, to create tables, and all of that. That is the database administrator part, where you learn how to manage a database. And so there is a nuance. The database could be existing on-premise. Most database administrators, maybe Oracle database administrators, SQL Server database administrators, Postgres database administrators, and so on and so forth, they learned on-premise and then they transited or transitioned to the cloud. And so if you are a database administrator and you are still an on-premise database administrator and you want to make more money, you want to upgrade, you have to become a cloud database administrator. That's when you begin to see the money again. Why? Because most organizations run their databases now in the cloud, for instance, in AWS, using the RDS service. So you have to become a master in the relational database service in AWS, and maybe specifically for your database type, the database type that your organization is using. So this role is easier than this one because it's a lot focused. It's a lot more focused than, what is expected, right? It's a lot more focused because, it's just one thing. It's like a functional thing. You've learned a tool and you're using that tool. So the tool here would be the database the SQL Server database or the Oracle database or whatever, right? And then you learn how to manage it. I'm talking and attending to my son. So I'm sure you guys as parents, you understand what's happening there. All right. So as a database administrator, you really are a master of that system. It's like you've learned one thing and you are so good at it, right? It's like it's an application. A database server is an application, or the database is an application on its own. And so you can focus and become a SQL Server, a database administrator, and you can manage a database. You can replicate databases. You can migrate a database, and all of that, and all of that process, all of those processes that will run inside a database. So you want to become a master in that. And this one is simpler because you focus on one thing, learn it very well. Here, as a solutions architect, you need to understand this role very well. You have to understand the database administration role very well. You have to understand this one as well very well. And so this one is a lot more focused, and you can learn it and become a database administrator. Though these ones are very huge in the market right now. These roles, the cloud roles, are very huge in the market now because organizations are moving to the cloud. Most organizations now are existing in the cloud. And also there are these roles that are also improving in the cloud because databases are managed in the cloud now. So you want to be that database administrator who understands and manages things in the cloud space. All right. There is the data scientist path. This path is a lot more focused on the data part, right? So the data scientist is somebody who can make use of data and and translate it into solutions that the organization can leverage on. Right. Data science is very, very broad. And so to do this one, you need to really be good in Python programming. You need to be really good in other programming languages, right? Other programming languages that are used for data science. Because data science involves data that is spread across different systems, different sources, different places, and you use that data to make meaning out of it. And there are a lot of tools that you would need to learn, right? As a data scientist, Python is your big boy. And of course, you begin to hear of packages that you use. Scikit-learn, you begin to hear of Matplotlib or Matplotlib, I think. You hear of different packages that you use to build data science projects. Data science projects are very huge, and really it is a role that is growing. And there are so many tools in AWS and other cloud platforms that you can use. You can hear of Hadoop systems. You can hear of, those are systems, the big data systems actually, that you use to get real huge, humongous data sets that come in and be able to translate them into meaningful things. So you use that data and you massage the data, you process that data and get information out of it as a data scientist. There is the big data part. You can put the big data part here as well. Big data engineer, or let's just put this as in another role and put it as big data engineer. Yes, this one falls here. So big data engineer, you deal with large, huge, humongous data sets that are coming in from different sources. This is really huge in the market right now, guys. And with the outcoming, or with the revolution or the dynamism that has occurred with cloud computing, organizations are able to store their large data sets in cloud storage environments like S3, like blob storage in Azure, and so on and so on. And so big data has become a big part of organizations. And so data that comes in huge varieties, from tweets, in Twitter, from Facebook comments, from Facebook videos, YouTube videos, data flows in different ways now, in different formats, in different varieties. that data needs to be stored somewhere. That data needs to be processed. It needs to be secured. It needs to be kept securely, and then it needs to be harnessed, and meaning is made out of it. And so in AWS, you can begin to hear of big data tools like EMR, that is Elastic Map Reduce, that is used to kind of process large data sets, right, and help organizations make meaning out of it. For instance, you're in the supply chain industry, and maybe, or you have stores like Walmart, and you are in that kind of Walmart industry, and you want to figure out, hey, where are all my stores located? I want to be able to locate future stores in different locations depending on data, depending on what information that I get from my data that I've gathered all over the years, or from data that I gather from different places. And so you see people out there, they are wishing, maybe they are making comments, they're making tweets wishing that, you know, there was a Walmart near them, and all of that information. All that information can be gathered and brought in and stored in an organization's data warehouse like Redshift in AWS, right? Or it can be stored in S3 for that organization. And so a big data engineer would come in, use that data, and process it with a Hadoop system in EMR. EMR is Elastic Map Reduce in AWS. And so they will use that system, which is a cluster type of system, right? You can have many nodes in your EMR cluster, which will process your data parallelly. So each of the nodes can process data really, really fast, right? So those systems will be able to process that data. So a big data engineer can help that organization optimize on that data. So take that data, clean it up, process it, and get meaning out of it, and say, hey, okay, out of all of these things that I've seen, we are recommending through a recommendation algorithm or whatever, you know, we are recommending that you maybe create a store in city 123, or in this city, maybe in Louisville, Kentucky, create a store in this zip code 10445, because we have seen so many people in our data wishing to have a store there. Or maybe in 10 years, we see that there will be a shift in population movement, and we think you can create a store right here, right? So that would be the work of this type of person. But it could also be the work of this person. So this person is very close to, this machine learning engineer is very close to this big data person. So I would rather put this machine learning person here, control, where is Command V? Machine learning engineer. I would rather put him here, right? He's close to the big data engineer, right? They do similar things. So the machine learning engineer needs to understand how to process large data sets, how to store them, how to build pipelines on top of them, how to make that data, make meaning out of data. That's mostly the use of a machine learning engineer, and AI engineer as well. There are AI engineers as well, AI engineers. So these guys need to be able to build systems that would process data really fast. So these guys, they are a lot more focused on getting meaning out of that data, building algorithms. So you should be able to be that person with a mathematical mind, who understands mathematical functions, algorithms, and can use them to build script or Python code that can detect anomalies, that can detect different things in data, that can detect you know, irregularities in data, in information. For instance, if you take, for instance, market data, right? Somebody can build an algorithm that goes in and figures out, hey, the market has been this way. Maybe this is the way the market will be tomorrow. I'm talking about the stock exchange market. And or hey, there are houses are a lot more focused on this area of town. Maybe next 2 years, there will be more houses located in this. So a machine learning engineer is somebody who will come in, build algorithms, get that data, right? It all boils down to the data. So the machine learning person is that person who will get the data, from the different sources. Maybe the big data engineer can help them, gather that data from the different sources and help them. Once that data has been cleaned up and put in a place, the machine learning engineer is that person who would optimize on that data, use that data, build algorithms that can make that data meaningful to the organization. And so you see, for instance, you're watching a movie on Netflix, and then the next thing, you put on your Netflix again, you see similar types of movies that you're watching. That is a recommendation engine, that is a machine learning algorithm that is doing that work, right? It's figured out that, hey, this person was watching this type of movie. He probably likes these types of movies. Why? Because all those who were watching those types of movies similarly watched the other types. And so the algorithms would do a recommendation for you depending on that information, that is had. Maybe there are likes that this person, these types of persons have had, right? They have had a lot of likes. This movie has had a lot of likes, and so you are recommending it or saying, hey, this movie is the most liked movie, and all that. You can build an algorithm that does that. And so you see some of these organizations on Netflix, Prime, Amazon Prime, and so on and so forth. Even Google recommendation engines, if you are doing SEO and all of that, that is what they use, machine learning. And so this is huge, 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 but it takes a lot of learning. You need to understand systems. You need to be good in Python. You need to be good in some of those packages that I was mentioning. You need to really be good in analytical skills and in mathematics. Those are the types of people who want to get into these roles. And it's not easy. It comes with time, as you learn, as you grow, as you go all through the whole process, right? So that's what these roles are about. These ones are very close to those ones as well. Remember, I just said machine learning, this one down here. This one, the data engineer, is very close to those ones. So we can copy this guy here and add it up here, right near here. This guy is very close to the ones above. He is very close to them. He is somebody who uses data to also make meaning out of the data, and the learning curve is similar. So you can either be one of these if you are the data type, the analytical type of person, the Python type of person who loves to write Python code, who loves to analyze things, who loves to put numbers together, who loves to kind of create imaginary things, transfer mathematical algorithms into code, right? And apply it into systems. This is where you want to be. And of course, you have to also learn it in relation to the cloud. You don't have to do this out of the cloud, because the cloud space is where the huge data sets are stored mostly right now, right? Because the huge systems that contain this data are mostly functioning in the cloud now. And so you want to be somebody who is learning this in the context of the cloud. So you want to be either an Azure data scientist, an AWS big data engineer, and you'll be using two AWS tools like Glue. You'll be using AWS tools like Spark. You'll be running on EMR, so you need Spark, you need Python, you need all of that. And machine learning will be running on maybe SageMaker in AWS. Those are systems that you use to bring up tools, basic tools like notebooks, notebooks. So Jupyter notebooks, for instance, for machine learning to run your code, and maybe notebook systems and all of those things. Data engineers, big data engineers, data scientists, you use those tools. Glue, you make use of business intelligence tools in AWS, like QuickSight. You make use of the Data Brew and all other systems within the cloud space. So sorry for my son's noise. He's playing right here, and I'm taking care of him today. So thank you for watching him with me. All right, guys. So this is how this works, right? So you begin to see you have to exist within the context of the cloud. It makes a lot more money because you are able to fit in. So if you were a data scientist, a big data engineer, a machine learning expert, a data engineer who, never really learned about the cloud. This is the time for you to learn about the cloud and the tools that these people can use in the cloud to become very good, to become very competitive, and to become to make more money and to grow. Guys, this is where you want to be in the cloud space. So you want to have that AWS thing on your cloud, on your thing. You want to have maybe AWS big data engineer. You want to have maybe Azure database, the machine learning expert, or AWS person, or AWS blah blah blah, right? You want to have that AWS, that Azure, that Google. You want to be that type of engineer who understands all the things, but you can work within the cloud. Because if I'm hiring a data engineer now, my data is existing in the cloud. I want him to be able to work using SageMaker, understands how SageMaker works, how notebooks work, can be able to bring up a Jupyter Notebook Studio in SageMaker and run things. He will not need to install some stuff in a server somewhere and then begin to run those things. So I want you to be able to do these things if you are in that space. And then AI engineers, people who build artificial intelligence systems, right? It also falls within this space, right? Machine learning is a branch of AI. So you see that this is just it's almost the same thing as this, right? So machine learning is just a part of artificial intelligence, and so machine learning engineers could also be AI engineers, but AI engineers are a lot broad. They come special. They come with those characteristics of the person who just knows those systems, who knows how to build the functional tools in that machine learning engineers can use, and all whatnot, right? So this is that person. There is another path, the business intelligence developer path. This is where I started off my career, right? I started off as a business intelligence developer. So this is that person who learns functional tools as well, like the Oracle business intelligence applications, like Tableau, like Power BI, so that you can use it to build dashboards, to build, to build beautiful snapshots of what an organization is trying to represent in its data. So you want to represent it in a way that leadership can just see a dashboard and they say, hey, this is the trend. This is what is happening. So you use Tableau, you can learn Tableau, but to be a good Tableau developer, if I'm hiring, I will not hire somebody who does not understand how to move data from place to place to be able to build a system using Tableau, right? Or Power BI. Somebody who is able to use data that is stored in the cloud, bring that data from different places, and be able to make meaning out of that data, creating a dashboard for me, creating visualizations, creating pivots, creating graphs, and all of those things. So this role is metamorphosizing. There's a metamorphosis that is occurring right here. And so as a business intelligence developer, if you are already a business intelligence developer, you want to be somebody who understands tools like Python. Python becomes so useful. You become a very good business intelligence developer if you can create some of those things using some of the packages that I mentioned here. There are packages that you can use to build plots, to build graphs, to build Python packages I'm talking about, to build systems, or to build visualizations that can help an organization be able to, to translate their data needs into real visualized meanings, right? To be able to make meaning out of their data. And so the business intelligence person wants to learn tools in the context of the cloud. You want to be able to be that person who can actually figure out, hey, if this organization has data here, here, and here, and here, I can bring that data together, maybe store it in S3 in AWS, and from S3, I link it up to QuickSight, or I build a catalog, a data catalog using, for instance, AWS Glue. So you know the Glue service in AWS, right? You can build a data catalog using the Glue service and crawl your data, right, from different places that you've stored, brought together and put in S3, crawl that data and automatically build ETL system such that once that data flows into S3, it automatically populates whatever thing you're building. So you build a pipeline on top of it, and you're able to use, for instance, QuickSight, for instance, Athena, the AWS Athena service, to query that data, to use it to bring more meaning and give the organization whatever it wants, right? To do this also, you need SQL. SQL is the basic tool that all of these guys need to have. That is how you get data out of database systems. You can even query data that is in S3 now using SQL. SQL is the structural query language that you use to get data out of the database. So if you have ever heard me speak and you have not learned SQL, then you are nowhere close to where I recommend you to be, right? Learn SQL. Whether you're doing whatever of these things, learn SQL, guys. SQL is the basic thing that you need to, the fundamental thing that you need to understand to be a good business intelligence developer, because you'll be querying databases to get information. You want to quickly get some information in order to be able to build your thing correctly. You have to query the database because data is stored in the database. I want to do this from this. I know how to select data from a database. I know how to modify data in a database, how to update tables, how to create tables, how to use SQL to do that. It is absolutely important. And these guys here also, they use SQL a lot. Everyone here uses SQL a lot. And so as a business intelligence developer, the two fundamental tools that you must learn: SQL, Python. I was very good in SQL when I was a business intelligence developer. I did a lot of queries when I was doing PeopleSoft applications, running PeopleSoft applications. You know, we used to do a lot of queries, a lot of sub-queries, and be able to join tables together, be able to bring tables that are stored in a database together, and, you know, use those tables to make meaning out of it and build other children on it, child tables, right? And kind of put them together to make meaning out of data. That is absolutely important. So you are not a business intelligence developer if you just learn Tableau, if you just learn Oracle Business Intelligence tools, if you just learn Oracle Business Intelligence developer tools, if you just learn Power BI. No, you are not a business intelligence developer. To be a business intelligence developer, you need to understand the process. Get data from different sources, because data is stored in different sources. Bring that data together and store it somewhere. Make sure it's secure, it's encrypted in transit as it's moving from wherever it's stored, from the different sources. You bring it together. It is encrypted in transit as it's moving. It should be encrypted as well when it is stored. So encryption at rest. That data is stored. It has to be encrypted so that scammers, thieves, cyber criminals don't just access your data, right? So you need to be that person who understands that process, and then you need to be able to use tools like Tableau and all of that, and maybe Glue and all that to process, the basic things to create tables, a database out of it. And then you can use Athena, you can use Tableau, you can use QuickSight, Data Brew, and all those nice tools in AWS, or out of AWS. Tableau connects with AWS. There are connectors, right? Remember, I'm talking in the context of the cloud, because most organizations now are working in the cloud. Now you're able to use what? You're able to connect those things. There are integrators that integrate Power BI to AWS, integrators that integrate Tableau to AWS, and so on and so forth, guys. And so the world is becoming cloud-gnostic. Cloud-gnostic. I want to put it that way. The world is becoming cloud inclined. The technologies are moving towards the cloud, and things are beginning to, to take shape that way. Organizations don't need to maintain huge servers in their local environments anymore. So all of these things work within the context of the cloud. And the more knowledge you understand in the cloud, and then your tools. You don't only have to understand the cloud, you have to understand the tools. You have to be able to build flexible dashboards. You have to be able to get data from different places and quickly make meaning out of it. If a business intelligence developer doesn't understand Python, he is doomed, because most organizations now want a quick way to get meaning out of data, and maybe you don't have time to use Tableau to do it. You run a query, you run a Python script, get that data, do your thing, get a graph that you want, and that's it. Tomorrow in a meeting, present it. And that's what is happening, right? So if you are somebody who wants to get into this, yes, the learning curve is not that big, but you have to understand Python, you have to know SQL, you have to know Tableau, Power BI. Don't learn one and then learn S3, learn Glue, learn some of those things that are business intelligence inclined. And discover that as you're learning these things together, you are becoming broad. You are becoming somebody who understands systems, and you can grow to become really good at these things, guys. And you see yourself just moving step by step to the director position, to the VP position, to maybe the president of your organization. I don't know. All right, guys. The next thing here is the data analyst role. The data analyst is somebody who analyzes data. It's close to this role here. So Python is your thing. SQL is your thing. You have to be an engineer, a SQL guru right here, right? You have to be neat. You have to be really neat with those ones, guys, to become a data analyst. But yeah, of course, tools like Tableau, tools like basic tools like Power BI and all those, Excel even, and some of those things can help you become a data analyst. And you can pretty much be very good, right, with data analysis. Add more tools into it, add more experience into it, and you can analyze data for an organization, right? And there are other tools like SPSS that is used for data analysis. There are tools like what's this other one? There are many tools for data analysis that you can actually learn. There's another tool that is close to Python. It's another programming language that's close to Python that you can learn. Also, it's old, but you can still learn it to become very good. All right, let me talk about the Scrum Master, guys. The Scrum Master is a role that I've seen so many people around who are not cloud, who are not, IT thing. They think that it is just that. I personally don't teach Scrum Master in my organization. Why? Because we think that this is a role for somebody who has dirtied his hand in IT for long, and then he just wants to relax and bring people together and discuss with them and all that. So that some people take 2 weeks to learn to become Scrum Masters. A Scrum Master is just a ceremony, a master of ceremony, for instance. A Scrum Master is somebody who understands an agile system, right? Who understands how to work in an agile methodology. There are different methodologies that organizations use to create software, to create and manage projects. And so agile methodologies are the new ways that people used to do it. And Scrum Masters are supposed to understand those methodologies and understand those principles. So as a Scrum Master, you should be able to, get data requirements or get project requirements and put them in systems like Jira, like Confluence, and so on and so forth. Those are systems, project management systems. So you should understand project management tools. It's not only the tools, you have to understand how to use them, how to use Jira, how to use Confluence, how to use Azure project management tools, and so on and so forth, guys. So, as the Scrum Master, you need those tools, and then you need to understand the software system. You have to understand the life cycle of a software implementation or of an application implementation of a project. So Scrum Masters are mostly, that I've seen, focused on, on software projects, on applications, on IT projects, right? And so I'm saying, as a Scrum Master, you need to be somebody who has a broad understanding of IT. Learn it. Even if you just learned it for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and you became a Scrum Master, you need to learn the general cycle, the whole cycle of IT to be good at your job, guys. If not, it will be a frustrating experience. Why? Because you'll be talking with engineers, with developers, with DevOps engineers, with database engineers in your team, in your stand-ups, because Scrum Masters organize things like stand-up meetings every day, where you come in, tell us what you did yesterday, tell us what you're working on today, and if you have a blocker, right? If you have a blocker, the Scrum Master, the ceremony person, helps, hey, where can I go to? to have access. What do you need? Maybe go to this person. The project manager can help. This person can help, and all that. So it's the person who coordinates a project, who makes sure that the project comes to completion depending on the various sprints. So you have to organize sprint planning meetings where people, your team, the whole team of DevOps engineers, database engineers, programmers, application developers, and all those people come in together and you plan your sprints. A sprint is a period of, for instance, 2 weeks in most organizations, where you have work put in your Jira board or in your project management environment, and you're planning how that work will be done. It's divided into chunks, little chunks, so that every engineer is assigned tasks and they are able to complete those tasks. And so the Scrum Master comes in the morning, he asks every morning in a stand-up, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Do you have any blocker? Can we help? You know, so that the project is agile in method. It's in little pieces. It's followed up. People are doing what they are supposed to do. People are reporting what they are supposed to do. And so there is that interaction, that connection that happens in a team. And so work is completed quicker. Else people will go and sit with blockers, with things, and they just sit there and come after 2 weeks and say, hey, man, I'm still working on this thing and it's not going right. It's similar to the project manager. This role is similar to the project manager. Most project managers are also Scrum Masters, or they started off as Scrum Masters, and so on and so forth. And so I'm saying, as a Scrum Master, you need to understand the whole life cycle of an IT system. Learn it if you don't understand it. Go learn it. There are a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of basic videos. You can buy them from Udemy for $15, $11, and so on and so forth, guys. Learn it. Don't just do the 2 weeks, the 1 month, the 3 months course and feel comfortable. Your work will be a little bit frustrating because they'll be talking, you'll not understand the terms. You'll not understand whatever anybody is saying. You'll not understand anything. So to be good at this, guys, you need to really, learn it very well. Project manager is the same thing, but the project manager is a lot more broader. You can become a project manager for anything, like any kind of project. But since we are talking in the context of IT, we are talking about the IT project manager, right? So that these roles also are becoming a lot more friendly towards the cloud. So you can have a cloud Scrum Master, you can have a cloud project manager, somebody who literally understands the basics, who has done his practitioner certifications, for instance, or those who like certifications. He has read those things, understood them, and how all of those things work together. And so, guys, these are some of the roles that I wanted us to discuss about today. You see these ones down here, the ones that we've already talked about. But now what I wanted also to add is that we have developers out there, for instance, in Africa, in Cameroon, software developers, web developers, and people who are in the traditional development system, and they are stuck there. They are making maybe 200,000 a year, and they are comfortable there. I'm a senior developer, software engineer, and I'm making 300,000 here. I'm comfortable. No, guys, there's a lot of money out there. Learn cloud. Go to the cloud space. Learn DevOps. Learn some of these processes in the cloud, because all what you're deploying, if you don't understand if your design is just meant to be for traditional systems of applications, to go on traditional servers and all that, you will not be able to understand scalability as is in the cloud space. And most organizations are looking at designs that favor that scalability, because there are a lot of benefits in the cloud. And so, guys, if you are out there and you're a developer making 300K or 200K and you are like, oh my God, I'm killing it. No, you're not killing it. There's a lot more money to be made, guys. So reach out to us. Let's connect you to these plugs. Let's plug you into this type of kind of flexible things where you can really sit there and make money, or even work from wherever you are for an organization in the U.S. People are in the US looking for DevOps engineers that are good at their thing and are also software developers. When you see those ones, you've seen gold. When you see those ones who are programmers and at the same time DevOps engineers, solutions architects, they are so good at their thing, man. They are so good at this because they really understand the systems, and that is where I want you to be. Very soon we'll be running programs out there in Africa where we'll get DevOps engineers, we'll get developers, software engineers, people, and train them in cloud technologies and cloud skills so that they become all-rounded guys and we can get them money, make them really good in the market, guys. So if you're out there and you're making a little money because you're a software developer, you're a computer scientist, you're this, and you are not making use of, and you are not yet, I'm saying not yet leveraging the cloud system, guys, I think it's time you up your game, get into this cloud thing, get into that space, or data engineering, into some of these things, guys. Just get into it. It is high time you upskill and become really good and make good money, guys. So that is what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope this video helps enlighten you a little bit on how to choose a career path. I hope it makes meaning out there for those who are seeking and searching. If you want to get to us, or maybe you're interested to learn more, just reach out to us at contact@primuslearning.org, or just hit me on our YouTube channel, guys. Guys, don't forget, some of you have been coming to our YouTube channel and not hitting the subscribe button and not hitting the like button. Give us those thumbs up and help us, create more content like this for all of us. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.